Hi everyone and welcome. We're in my tub of compost only, and this tub has been out here for, gosh, I don't know, close to a month now, something in the neighborhood of 26 or so days. And the reason I can remember that is because it was 5 days, and then there were three 6 day periods, so 18, that's 23, and then another 3 days since the last time I checked in. So, yeah, we're a little bit less than a month into this, and when I say this, I'm referring to an attempt to allow the compost a little bit of time to dry out, because when I first harvested it, it seemed very sticky and gooey and muddy. And then one of the viewers who was watching my harvesting video suggested that, hey, you look like you had a lot of worms in the material. You should probably try to round them up, as long as you're going to be letting this stuff sit around and air out anyway. So, just long story short, I've been waiting 6 days between check-ins on this little bait box. The bait box is attempting to lure in any of the straggler worms that made their way into the material. And the other thing that I've been anticipating is that the material probably has cocoons in it with yet to be hatched worms in it. So I'm already like in this is number 4 now. This is reload number 4. Only 3 days into reload number 4, attempting to bait out any newborn worms that might be just emerging from the cocoons and trying to find their way to some nourishment and some food. I'm sure they'll find some food within the material, but I'm still trying to create an attractive place for them to be drawn to. So when I reloaded this thing a couple days ago, I put some melon in there. But the one thing I definitely forgot to do, which one of my viewers pointed out, was I forgot to include any sort of bedding. So if I do have worms entering the container, they might not be sticking around. They might, eat and then not find a place to hang out and then leave. So it was a very good point, and even though this has only been going for 3 days now, I wanted to address that oversight. So I wanted to just quickly, pop off the cover and take a look at how the material is doing. So I guess besides melon, there was also some cucumber peelings in there. And the one thing we've been definitely noticing is how the number of worms showing up to take part in this feeding bonanza inside this bait box has just continued to diminish each time. And it made us wonder, hey, maybe maybe the worms have all exited the material. Might be. It might be the case, but I'm still thinking there might be still a few baby worms in here. And that's the other reason I thought it would be important to make sure that there's a supply of grit for them, so that if they do emerge and they're hungry, that they have a supply of grit to turn to support their digestion. So I've grabbed this little white tray just so we could empty the contents, and then I wanted to dump in some bedding material so that if any worms are drawn into this container, that they would have a reason to stick around. So I wanted to make sure that there was a nice comfortable bedding layer underneath the food for them to hang out in once they're finished feasting. So this should go pretty quick. I'm just going to dump out the contents. And I'm just curious to see what we see. Looks like there's some mold developing in here. This white stuff wasn't there a couple days ago. And it is a bit difficult to dislodge some of this food, so I'm using a stick to shake it loose from the edge. And to be honest, I have not yet seen even one worm. It makes me continue to question if, is it possible that the baiting is done and was successful, and that this is just a big tub of compost only with no worms in it. I still have some faith that there's quite possibly a few baby worms that are going to be emerging from their cocoons that we might end up being able to round up in here. So even though we're not seeing any now, I'm still hopeful that we'll eventually start seeing some, and hopefully that'll be soon, because this material seems to be drying out nicely. So I think it's already almost at the consistency that I'd be looking for, that I like. So the bedding material that I was going to use is just a few scraps of cardboard that I had shredded up for another purpose yesterday. Had a little bit of leftover, so it seemed like the perfect place to put it. Just a few shreds. And since this vegetable and fruit material is already kicking off a fair amount of moisture and juice, I'm not going to worry about it being, too dry. I'm just going to put it right back in. But before we do that, why don't we probe around and see if we can possibly spot a worm. It would be nice, even if it was a little tiny baby worm. I see a fruit fly. So thank you to the viewer. I can't remember who it was at this point, who it was that made the suggestion that there might be a missing ingredient here, and that might be the reason there are no worms in the container. So let's consider the matter resolved. We now have bedding, and the bedding should take on a nice moist consistency once this material continues to kick off a little bit more juice, and then maybe in some time in the future, in some number of days in the future, I don't know when, if at all, we'll maybe start seeing some worms showing up in here. So I want to just make sure that the material is resting right up against the edge of the container, so that if and when any worms make their way over, that it's really just a short hop over from the castings into the bait box and onto the food that they're being drawn to. So, well, let's keep our fingers crossed. Let's see what happens. As far as I'm concerned, though, if nothing happens and we see no worms, then it's still a mission success, because we've already pulled a number of worms out of here and continued to see their numbers diminish each time. And ultimately, that was the objective, was to try to, give any sort of straggler worms that might have remained in the material a second chance to stay with their brothers and sisters in my worm colony, and, not be cast out into the yard where they could fall prey to birds and other sort of creatures that might be interested in eating them. So, all right, that was just a quick check-in to address what appeared to be an oversight on my part. So thanks again for, giving me that tip. I really appreciate it. Please also give me a thumbs up if you're out there and you're enjoying these videos, and if you do, I really appreciate that. And also consider becoming a subscriber to the channel. I always really appreciate that as well. Ring the bell too. If you ring the bell while you're subscribing, you'll be notified by YouTube that I've got new content online, so you can come right over and check it out. All right, everyone. Thanks again, and have a great day. Bye-bye.